5:31 p.m. on May 6, 2024. I will call to order this meeting of the Board of Public Works. First item on the agenda is appearances for non-agenda items. I see no one in the audience here. Scott, nobody signed up. Moving on, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the April 15th.
I so move we approve the minutes of April 15th.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Excellent. Any discussion from anyone? Hearing none, I will go ahead and call the vote. All in favor of approval of the April minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay. Next up, report from the Director of Public Works. Tim, what have you got for us today?
Good evening. A couple of project updates. First off, our Phase 2 and 3 Sain Road reconstruction project. The 90% design and technical specifications are complete for both phases. Our 2024 street resurfacing project, Payne and Dolan, began today installing the traffic control. They'll wrap that up tomorrow, and then on Wednesday, May 8th, they will start the road work. They'll be starting on South Seminole Highway, Vroman Road, and then Grandview Road. And the anticipated schedule right now is to have the rural roads completed by Memorial Day. And then our 2024 street maintenance contract, that's our crack filling and our chip seal project. Our bid opening is this Wednesday, May 8th, 2024. And then our 2024 sidewalk replacement project, we're looking to have that advertised at the end of this month. And then our Fitchburg Road Goose Lake Stormwater Project, on the June 3rd, 2024 Board of Public Works agenda, we're looking to have two separate items regarding that project. For that agenda, one item will be for the scope of work for the design, and then the other will be the interlocal agreement with the town of Verona for their cost share of the design services for that project. Our library chiller project startup was complete on Friday, April 26th, and the chiller has been up and running since. And we are having a punch list walkthrough is scheduled for this Thursday, May 9th. Next up, our Greenway Cross Storm Sewer Improvement Project. Our contractor started work today. There is a detour route for that project. We're detouring through the West Beltline frontage road to Coho Street. And then we're looking to have that project wrapped up next month, June 2024. And then lastly, our Fitchburg Road reconstruction project. We received the 90% design plans and technical specifications on Friday, April 26th, and city staff is currently reviewing those. With that, does anyone have any questions?
I got a couple, but you can tell me, we'll talk offline if needed. Goose Lake, when I was biking by there, I saw a huge project, Madison Metropolitan Sewage. Are they running storm sewer water into the lake? 'Cause we already have flooding issues there.
No, they're not running anything into the lake. MMSD is not.
So what are they doing?
So they're pumping that to their wastewater plant.
Out towards Verona? Or
Their plant, which I believe is just south of the Beltline, kind of to the northeast of here.
Up by South.
Correct.
Oh, okay. Okay. The other one, I was gone. So Pembroke, there was a big rollover crash there.
Yes.
What's the follow-up with that, if anything?
So right now we are gathering data on Raritan. The city doesn't have any current data, so we installed a traffic counter up there last week. We're going to keep that up for 2 weeks. And kind of once the data comes back, take a look at it and kind of proceed with moving forward if anything is warranted, depending on the traffic volume and the speeds that we're seeing. Secondly, we're going to discuss at the TTC kind of what happened. So on their agenda, Ross, I believe Monday, May 13th, TTC will be discussing kind of what happened and potentially a path forward. And then also the variable speed boards that are on the agenda for the upcoming council meeting. Potentially one, so the council is purchasing 8 total boards. 2 boards are going to be for each district, and potentially one of the boards in that district could be placed permanently on that street. And with the data that we've collected on Pembroke, the variable speed boards have shown a reduction in speeding. It shows a decrease, I believe, 6 miles per hour, about approximately when a board has been placed up on Pembroke. So that's shown as an effective traffic control measure.
That speed board is on an uphill incline, though. I'd be interested to see
downhill.
The downhill side, yeah.
And what's your warrant for a 4-way stop there?
Warrant, there's a couple warrants in the MUTCD. I believe it's having the equal traffic volume in all 4 directions, and then also kind of minimum traffic volume, which I don't recall what that is.
It's 300 vehicles per day vehicles per hour, per hour for the major road, and 200 vehicles per hour for the minor road.
That's never gonna, I mean, those are the daily counts right now, aren't they?
Right, yeah.
Okay, so what about the fact that there's been, I mean, aside from this, I believe there was another crash at that same intersection within the last few years. Those crashes have to count for something towards a warrant, right?
There is a warrant for crashes, but those 2 crashes the last one was in 2017, so those 2 crashes in 6 or 7 years don't meet that warrant. So. I don't know. I mean, that seems a little ridiculous, I guess. I mean, two crashes over a few years in a residential area ought to warrant some form of treatment, I would hope. Yeah. Anyway.
You're just going to make me, now I got to go look at the MUDCD, the new one, because there's a lot of engineering judgment that's applied, I think, in there too. So if you so deem that there's enough of a history, especially with your new program of traffic calming and these lower volume roadways, it might behoove us to do something so that we don't have to do something like on Sain, wait for someone to die and then do a fix.
What about traffic calming? Does the neighborhood, but that would have to come from the neighborhood as a request, so maybe you need to look at that kind of a thing too.
Yeah, well, we'll discuss all of this at TTC, so I'll encourage you to show up if you're interested. That's 1 week from today.
It's on a Monday, TTC? Don't they typically meet on Thursdays?
Yes,
The city has a strategic planning workshop this coming Thursday, May 9th, so that pushed TTC to Monday at 4 p.m., May 13th.
Oh, right, special time, yes.
Yep.
Any other questions for the director? All right, moving on. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution R8624, approving the locally preferred alternative for the BRT North-South Corridor?
I'll move that we approve Resolution R8624, approving locally preferred alternative for BRT Route B, actually, it should say, shouldn't it?
Rapid Route B.
Rapid Route B.
I'll second.
Excellent. So I see Mike has turned on his video here. I presume you'll be walking us through this. Tim or Ross, did you want to do any introductory statements here?
Yeah, sure. So this is Mike Czechvala. He's the project manager for the North-South BRT project and East-West BRT for Madison Metro Transit. And he's going to kind of go into a lot more detail on this project, I think. So take it away, Mike.
Okay, thanks, Ross. I'm going to try to share my screen here. If I'm able to do that. Yep. Okay, so I'm assuming you can see that. If not, let me know. I'm Mike Czechvala, the project manager for North-South BRT. That's what we call the project name. The name of the route will be Rapid Route B, as opposed to just normal Route B, I guess. And so what we're moving towards in the project is what's called the locally preferred alternative. So that's what this presentation is about. And so Rapid Route B at North-South BRT is the second BRT route that's being built in the Madison area. Route A here is the East-West BRT shown in red. So that's about a 15-mile, 31 station project. Route B will add 11 and a half miles of new running way and stations, and then it'll share 3.5 miles with East-West. So the total route will be 15 miles as well. Coincidentally, they're the same length. But because 3.5 miles in the middle has already been built and it'll just use those bus lanes and those stations, that middle section of it doesn't have any changes. So it's kind of split into a north end in North Madison, and then a south part of it is the route shown in green there in South Madison and in Fitchburg. So some features of North-South BRT: service every 15 minutes throughout most of the day. High quality stations with raised platforms, priority at traffic signals, dedicated lanes, faster fare payment, all electric 60-foot buses, which will actually start this fall. We've purchased all the rolling stock for the line with the East-West BRT project. It made sense because of those shared stations, that we kind of had to buy all the buses at once. So those will already start at the end of this year. Just a little bit about why we're investing in this route. So one of my previous slides said it's the second busiest mainline route in the system. It's a very important route. It connects 53,000 people, 40,000 jobs, number of other places and destinations, several major hospitals, Madison College in South Madison, and several low-income communities. So, there's a little bit that I'm not going to go into in detail here, but the long story short here is that Madison and the Madison region is a growing region. We're one of the fastest growing regions of our peers. Our streets are basically at capacity. We'd like to accommodate growth. We'd like to have growth be sustainable and not just kind of have us busting at the seams with traffic congestion and not really have alternatives for people to traffic congestion. So we'd like to give them good alternatives with the BRT system. We'd like to improve the capacity and efficiency of the bus system. So that's what we're doing here. Let me describe what the locally preferred alternative is. It's kind of a technical jargon concept, but it basically identifies the mode, the route alignment, the station locations, and then it also kind of defines the running characteristics to some degree or another. So it's a point in the project that is, part of the federal process to get a federal grant for a bus rapid transit project where we identify these key things. So like, for example, when we go into preliminary engineering and more detailed planning and environmental analysis, we really can't keep going back to the drawing board and saying, is the station here or is it there? Is the route on Park Street or is that on Fish Hatchery? We need to kind of nail these things down so that we have some certainty as we go forward and take the next steps. So that's what it's about. So it's running through the political process to make that make that statement that that's where the route alignment, the station locations are, that it is bus rapid transit, and some general thoughts about the running way characteristics. It's not a detailed design and engineering document. So, as we've done a lot of the public engagement, people are asking us very technical questions. What side of the intersection is the station going to be on? How wide is everything going to be? We kind of think about those things at this point, but really that's something we do in the next step, which is preliminary engineering. But it kind of plays into the conversation about what's really in the LPA. So we haven't shied away from it, but we're trying to not get too detailed at this point in the project. So quick summary of the locally preferred alternative. Basically, the Madison area has looked at multiple modes throughout the years. Since the 1980s, we looked at light rail, commuter rail, streetcar, and kind of hybrids of these things. In 2012, we studied bus rapid transit and identified that as the best mode for the east-west and north-south corridor. So the rail options have basically been dismissed because of the high cost, although some of those modes could come to the Madison area at some point. Bus rapid transit really does what we need it to do. It's cost effective, and it fits the corridors very well. So again, Route B here shown in green. This is essentially the same route as current Route B. This route was identified during the transit network redesign, which was put in place in the summer of 2023. So it's not really changing. There are a couple odds and ends that I'll go through in a bit, but generally it starts in North Madison along Northport, comes down Packers, feeds through the Isthmus, and then becomes the Park Street corridor bus, dodges over to Fish Hatchery, and then crosses the Beltline and becomes a Fish Hatchery Road corridor bus, ending around McKee Road. I'll talk about that in a second. That's a minor change. Service every 15 minutes throughout most of the day. That matches the existing service that's out there. When we implemented Route B in 2023, we set this up knowing that we wanted to make this a BRT route. So the service has already been established, running every 15 minutes throughout the day, and then every 15 minutes throughout the day on Saturdays as well. Sundays and evenings, it drops every 30 minutes. The stations are anticipated at this point to look pretty similar to the stations that we're building on East-West BRT. So, for example, along Mineral Point Road, East Washington, University Avenue, you can see several of these stations that are under construction. This is basically what they look like. This is not really your typical bus stop, but it's much more of a station than a simple stop. The platform is 13.5 inches off the elevation of the roadway. That matches the elevation of the floor of the bus, so people can just walk on and off. Makes it a lot easier and a lot faster to get on and off the bus, a lot less delay. People can board at any door on the bus. You see a roof that covers the entire platform, and then we have amenities like real-time arrival information, heat, benches, and so forth. One thing that we will be talking about doing is converting some of the side running bus lanes to center running. And so just like to go through some of the benefits of doing that and kind of describe what we're doing. It provides more consistent travel time because it really eliminates the conflicts in the right lane with the turning vehicles, bikes, deliveries, people who park there for a short period of time. A lot of those conflicts really can't be removed from the right lane. And so to do that, we build the bus lanes in the left lane. Then, as you can see from the picture there, what we can do is build one platform that'll serve buses in both directions. So there's some efficiency there. Related to that, we get the question of how do you get to these stations? People have seen the stations being built in the median, and they say, how is that going to work? So you have to cross the street today to ride the bus. You might not have to cross the street to get to one direction, but you'll have to cross the street on your way back or in the other direction. So with center running BRT, you always cross the street to get to the platform, but you only cross half the street. So you cross half the street twice instead of the entire street once. So it's the same total amount of crossing. All of these stations are at signal controlled intersections. So what you do is you'd cross just like you were crossing the street, press the button if it exists, which it usually does, to get the walk light across the street, and you only go halfway across. And then that gets you to the median, and there you are on the platform where you wait for the bus or exit the bus and go back to your destination in the same way. I'll go over some of the details, and I typically work north to south, and although a lot of this doesn't really pertain directly to Fitchburg, it's all one unified route. So I always talk about the entire route, and people who use the bus who might live in Fitchburg will often, of course, visit places in Madison on the north side or other places along the route. So I think it is all connected together. The green line on here is mixed traffic. So some of the route does operate in mixed traffic. It does a clockwise loop around Troy, Green, Northport, with a terminal at Northport and Kennedy. And then it comes in Northport, Packers Avenue. It uses the on and off ramps at Aberg Avenue to serve stations on the ramps going to and from Aberg Avenue. And then it drops down North Street to East Washington Avenue. From there, it follows East Washington Avenue concurrent with Route A through the Isthmus, around the Capitol Square, along State Street, and then through the UW campus on University and Johnson Street, using bus lanes that primarily exist along that downtown stretch. And then it continues south on Park Street. On Park Street here, we will have a full reconstruction project in South Madison between Badger Road and Fish Hatchery Road. So kind of the southern half of the line there. That will replace the existing pavement that's in poor condition, as well as utilities. It'll create a widened sidewalk along the west side of Park Street, as well as build the BRT infrastructure concurrent with the project. So we'll have center running bus lanes along most of Park Street. There are a few stretches where we do have mixed traffic up at the north end, where we have only 2 lanes in each direction to implement. So we do have to have some mixed traffic there. And then we have a small southbound stretch between West Washington and Erin, where we need to preserve some on-street parking. We do a slight jog through Hughes, Cypress, and Badger Road, and then go south on Fish Hatchery Road, crossing the Beltline and entering the city of Fitchburg. In Fitchburg, we're showing 5 stations: Greenway, Post, High Ridge, Cahill, Maine, and McKee. We're showing bus lanes along Fish Hatchery Road, basically where they exist today. I'll talk a little bit about that cross section in just a second. The route does a slight deviation to Caddis Bend and Cahill, Maine, to serve that neighborhood where the Cahill, Maine stop is. The reason for that is we have fairly dense residential development and retail in that area as well. And it's really centered where that station is. We could stay on Fish Hatchery Road and the route would be slightly faster, but that deviation adds, maybe a minute or two to the route, but it really serves the people who need it, asking them to walk down the Fish Hatch when really all of the development is concentrated west of the road. Just wouldn't be great service. So we're doing that slight deviation. And today, that is where Route B currently ends. It's basically where that Cahill main station is. This proposal, or this locally preferred alternative, would extend the route from Cahill, Maine, about a half mile or so to the south to the intersection of more or less Fish Hatchery and McKee. And what we're showing there is a station called McKee, and it's on Triverton Pike Drive. Triverton Pike Drive is the street just west of Fish Hatchery Road. It's a short street that connects Brendan and McKee. A couple of reasons for that. One is there is quite a bit of development there. There's a good reason to extend it because I think that station will get quite a bit of use. Another reason is we'd like to have charging for the electric buses at the end of the line. This is a good place to have that. There's a drainage facility just to the east, kind of in that square-shaped loop to the east of the station. So that gives us some real estate to be able to put in a electric charging. We don't need a lot, but we just need a parcel that we can encroach on a little bit. And so that does that. And then kind of the third reason, I'll go into it in a little bit, but we'd like to kind of set up a transfer point or place where a couple routes can come together and make connections there. That would be the 75 going to the west and the 65 going to the south and east. And so that will prevent buses from going too far out of direction and make some nice connections there at McKee and Triverton Pike. Talk about typical sections. I have typical sections for the rest of the corridor, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to show Fish Hatchery here. So Fish Hatchery Road was reconstructed, I'm going to say about 5 years ago. So the roadway is in good condition. We're not going to remove those investments. This project would retrofit BRT into that cross section that was already constructed. The before cross section on the top there shows 2 travel lanes in each direction and a combined bus and bike lane in each direction. And then we have a shared use path on the west side of Fish Hatchery. So this would be looking to the north. This with BRT, we would flip the bus lane to the left. So the right lane would become a general purpose travel lane, and then the left lane would become a bus only lane. We still have 2 travel lanes in each direction. Bus lane in each direction on the left side, and then the shared use path on the west side remains. One thing that we've heard from people in the corridor in Fitchburg was the desire to maintain the shared bus bike lanes for bicycle use, and we looked at that and we kind of compared it with what we're doing in Madison, and what we do in Madison doesn't have to be the same as what we do in Fitchburg. But what we've when we look at the guidance, we rarely put 2 bike facilities on a street today. We've done that in a couple of corridors, and what we find is by great majority, people use the easier to use off-street, more protected bike facility. So this chart on the left kind of shows speeds on the x-axis and volume on the y-axis, and that's traffic speeds and traffic volumes. And when we have low speed, low volume streets, neighborhood streets, we don't typically put any bike facility on. People just ride in the street. When we do start to see the speeds and volumes get a little bit up there, then we get into that pinker area where we have bike lanes. We have some kind of on-street facility to separate the traffic from the bikes. And when you get into the higher speed, higher volume facilities, we typically do a protected facility or a off-street path typical to what's on the west side of Fish Hatchery today. And when we provide, both two facilities, we find that people by and large use the more protected off-street path. So that's what we're proposing as part of the LPA. I'll talk about some Fitchburg related updates. We had some initial meetings back in November and December. We heard some useful comments and questions from policymakers, the public, stakeholders. So I'd kind of like to go through a couple things that have changed since then based on that feedback. One of the main things in Fitchburg was a desire to look at extending Rapid Route B from the currently planned terminal on Triverton Pike Drive down to East Sherrill or Lacey Road. We looked at that in quite a bit of detail. We are not recommending it with the locally preferred alternative. The main reason is simply cost effectiveness. The corridor really isn't quite ready for the service levels that are demanded by BRT today. There is no all-day service on this corridor. I think it should have all-day service. We're working to add all-day service, but it's just a really big jump to go from having no all-day service at all to service every 15 minutes. It also it reduces the competitiveness of the entire route because it adds a mile or two of route that's entirely in mixed traffic, and it doesn't really add a lot of ridership to the route. So the Federal Transit Administration looks at these projects and compares it to others on the national scale. It looks at these cost effectiveness and other measures. So we just don't think this part of the corridor is quite ready, but we think it will be at some point. And so we'd like to take some of the first steps towards getting it ready and providing all-day transit service. And we think that today that solution looks more like this. So this concept would end Rapid Route B at the Triverton Pike Drive terminal, but it would make some investments in Route 65 and 75. These are currently peak-only routes, and this would increase the service on those routes to provide all-day service. It would be lower frequency than Route B. It wouldn't run every 15 minutes. It might run once an hour or something, but that's a little bit more appropriate for these types of corridors. And as I mentioned earlier, we think it's a good splitting off point at Triverton Pike and McKee. Route 65 going to the south could operate as some kind of unofficial extension of Route B, where every other bus or every fourth bus or every third bus continues south as a Route 65, or perhaps Route 65 could turn into Route 75, providing kind of a solid east-west connection through Fitchburg with the connection to Route B at Triverton Pike. And then ultimately, I think, we'd like to see Route B be extended, and that can be done. But it's not like we can't extend it in the future, but I don't think it's the right time to do it with the North-South BRT project. And funding, so the majority of the funding will come from a federal capital investments grant. This is a Federal Transit Administration grant that funds capital projects. So this is a purely capital project. It builds the bus lanes, the stations, and other infrastructure along the line. There is some funding from WISDOT shown in the blue there. That's basically part of the Park Street reconstruction project. City of Madison funds and tax incremental financing, that's from the City of Madison. And then we also are expecting some of the funding to come from the City of Fitchburg for the improvements that are within the City of Fitchburg. So that wouldn't be, so the federal funding would be shared proportionally along the route. And so Madison, basically pays for its share of the local costs, and then Fitchburg would pay for its share of the local cost. Metro's not, so bus rapid transit isn't expected to impact Metro's overall operating budget. The cost to run the route will be slightly less because the electric buses will use less, they won't use the diesel fuel. The electricity is a little bit cheaper than diesel fuel. On the other hand, the stations do require maintenance. That really kind of balances out. The biggest cost of operating the route is the driver, and that really doesn't change. There could be a operating cost increase because of that extension to Triverton Pike Drive Terminal. That extension would, would increase the proportion of the route that's within the city of Fitchburg, which is how we determine how the costs of the route are allocated. That concept of extending and improving the service on Route 65 and 75, that would be a separate action that would be unrelated to Rapid Route B, but it would be it kind of paints a more complete picture of our hope for transit investments in the city of Fitchburg. So I think it's all kind of related, but that really isn't part of Rapid Route B or the locally preferred alternative. So some next steps. As I mentioned, we did some system planning back in 2012, and that's kind of gone on behind the scenes for the last 10 years or so. We're now in the phase of planning. After the locally preferred alternative, we'll move into preliminary engineering, environmental analysis. We expect construction to happen in the 26, 27, 28 time frame if everything holds on the schedule, and then we'd expect the route to be open for revenue service probably in the 2028 timeframe. So path to locally preferred alternative, we're taking feedback. We held a couple public information meetings in the city of Fitchburg, as well as several in Madison. And we had some online for people who could join virtually. We are finalizing the recommendation and creating a report, which is in draft form right now. And then once it's adopted by both the city of Madison and city of Fitchburg, it'll be finalized. So it's kind of going through our two adoption processes at the same time. As the lead agency, Metro is part of the city of Madison. We're asking the city of Fitchburg to adopt the locally preferred alternative first, which is mainly pertains to the improvements within the city. But then the city of Madison will adopt the locally preferred alternative in its entirety, with whatever recommendations that the city of Fitchburg adds or changes to it, and then that'll be the final act for the locally preferred alternative, which allows us to move into the next steps. We have a website, madisonbrt.com. We also have an email address, brt@cityofmadison.com. We've been trying to do some outreach and try to connect with people and get their questions, comments, incorporate that as it makes sense. Our main number there, 608-266-4466. That's always available for people who'd like to contact us by phone. So I think that's the end of my slideshow. I'll go ahead and ask if there are any questions.
One general question, and I guess the whole effort, has there been like traffic modeling to know what it's going to do to the regular roadway during peak times?
Yeah, good question. There is some traffic modeling going on. For the most part, the bus lanes fit into the existing streets. So, for example, Fish Hatchery has 2 lanes in each direction today. It'll have 2 lanes in each direction with the bus lane with the project. I think the key sections that we're most interested in is the Beltline Highway crossing. We're not planning on really removing lanes through the intersection, but kind of after the lanes are needed. So, for example, we have the northbound right lane peels off to the eastbound Beltline. We'd like to have it kind of be a bus lane after that, So we're fitting in little pieces where it kind of makes sense for us, but really doesn't impact traffic a lot. We're working through the traffic modeling. That's not complete yet, but we're working with our partners at Dane County and Wisconsin Department of Transportation. Park Street is similar to Fish Hatch in that it's 2 lanes in each direction. That will remain 2 lanes in each direction. The one place where we are actually removing some capacity is Packers and Northport around the curve near the airport there. That is going from 3 lanes to 2 lanes with a bus lane. So that is a reduction in capacity. For the most part, that street has more capacity than it needs. There is one intersection at International Lane that becomes a little bit tight with the bus lane. So we're trying to make that work and see if there's improvements that we can do with the project to make that work. One thing that comes with this is we make some improvements at most of the traffic signals. So there's usually some signal timing and signal improvements that can be made in conjunction with this.
And a follow-up to a traffic one, and I agree with what you're doing right there by the belt line. That right turn where the bus lane is now is kind of hinky with all the cars trying to get on the belt line. But is there going to be, for the dedicated bus lane, signal priority or signal preemption?
Signal priority, yeah. So there will be signal priority along the entire line. Let me talk about how that works just for a second. So you know, the traffic signals are semi-actuated, so they have a cycle length of 100 seconds or 120 seconds or whatever it is. But then the phases within that cycle length can vary based on whether there's traffic there calling for the phase. And so what signal priority does is it makes minor adjustments to those splits to, for example, hold the green light for a couple seconds to get the bus through the intersection, or try to cycle through a little bit faster so that if the bus is waiting at a red light, the green light will come a little bit faster. But it typically does not take the signal out of coordination. And so it's not like a preemption. Now, a preemption does take the signal out of coordination, and it says, I don't really care what phase you're in. I'm gonna get the phase that I want. So like when a train comes through, that would be a preemption, and that shuts down whatever phase the signal is currently on and switches to the phase that the train needs or the ambulance or fire truck needs. So priority is a much lower level of effect on the traffic signal. It's shown to have next to no impact on traffic, and usually what it does is it helps the main street. So the bus is usually on the main street on Fish Hatchery Road, for example. It's the main street. So if BRT and signal priority is calling for more time on the main street, it would just affect that cycle. But then that's usually also where the traffic congestion is. So it's really not reducing the capacity of the main street.
What about parking down at Triverton Pike, which is the terminal? There is no park and ride there. I know there is some on-street parking, but if you're encouraging people to use this to go to the city of Madison or go to the north side and that kind of thing, how is that going to be handled?
Sure. So there's no parking on Triverton Pike as far as I know, but there is parking on Brendan and some of the other streets around there. But we don't really make any statements, for or against people parking on streets and taking the bus. We know some people do that. We know sometimes it kind of has no effect on the neighborhood, and sometimes it does have an effect. As long as people are parking legally, like I said, we really just don't make any statement about it. We are not planning on building any park and rides with the north-south BRT project. We are building one with the east-west BRT project on Junction Road on the far west side of Madison near Junction and Watts. That's mainly a function of having a large parcel that we acquired actually years ago when we widened Junction Road. And so the city owned that parcel and it basically just had weeds growing on it. And we needed to put the charging infrastructure for the electric buses there. And so we had the rest of the parcel. We said, well, why not just put a parking lot on it so we can have a park and ride there. We really don't have that situation on the north-south BRT, so we are not proposing any parking rides at this point with north-south BRT.
And I can understand that. I guess I don't really think it's probably Metro's issue. I'm just wondering, has the city of Fitchburg thought at all about what would happen to parking if this becomes popular, as you probably hope it will be, to be able to accommodate an influx of vehicles that want to park somewhere all day long?
Yeah, so there, like Mike said, there is a lot of street parking in that area. And really right now, it doesn't get fully utilized. Those streets are designed with 10-foot travel lanes and 8-foot parking lanes on both sides. And frankly, if more people parked along those streets, we'd probably see lower speeds in those neighborhoods. So, not the point of this project, but maybe a kind of knock-on effect. I don't expect to see a huge increase in the amount of on-street parking we see in that neighborhood, though.
I guess continuing on that, I'm looking at the Google satellite imagery, and it's reminding me of the old phrase "water, water everywhere, not a drop to drink." There is a sea of parking there between Yarmouth Crossway, the North Star Group, Madison Midwives, Benvenuto's. I have no idea how full any of those lots get, but I mean, is it possible that people could park in some of those lots as well?
That wouldn't really be a city, I'm not sure the word I'm looking for, city ordained
Right.
thing, but it wouldn't
Because
surprise
those
me if it
businesses
happened.
could sign them to say, no parking, except for customers or whatever, anyway. Or they could say, we do have excess parking and we are willing to let people park there with some kind of an agreement or something too. But they could restrict it, even though
Yeah.
it's there.
Yeah, we found that it hasn't been a huge problem system wide. A lot of the park and ride, we don't really know where it's happening. We kind of know, but it's not like we track down every car that's parked somewhere near our bus stops and try to find out where it came from and if they're riding the bus or if they're going to the store or maybe they're doing both. We have found that usually where it happens at grocery stores and things is places where they have excess parking and people are parking there because why not? It's an empty space, and a lot of times they do use they stop into the store for a coffee or dinner for the night on their way home or whatever. So we have gotten a few complaints and when those properties, they do have the ability to sign their lots, no parking or 2-hour parking or customer only parking, things like that. But it hasn't really been widely used. We haven't seen it as a huge concern because it kind of distributes along the line.
So switching gears, what kind of ridership do you anticipate this getting from the Fitchburg area? Do you see this adding a lot of ridership, or do you see it not changing much, or what?
Yeah, so we don't really have formal ridership projections yet. Route B is our second busiest mainline route, and so that's throughout South Madison and the Isthmus and North Madison as well. We have seen a significant increase in ridership, particularly in Fitchburg and in South Madison, since the transit network redesign took place back in last summer. And the main reason for that is the increase in frequency and directness. So for the first time in however many decades, you can get on a bus every 15 minutes on Fish Hatchery Road and just go straight into town. You can go straight to the University of Wisconsin campus. You can go to the Capitol Square. You can go to the Isthmus. You can make a transfer and go somewhere else in the system. So we've substantially reduced travel times. We've already seen a pretty good adoption of Route B. We expect these improvements to continue that growth. One thing that I've been saying is that there's really no benchmark anymore. Since the coronavirus pandemic and transit network redesign, it's a little bit hard to compare anything. But we expect ridership on Route B to continue to grow. We expect these improvements to accelerate that growth.
A couple other questions. Do you expect, because I know some communities, when they introduce this, they actually offer some more deals to the riders to encourage more of that. Do you anticipate the cost for ridership will be increasing, staying the same, or you'll have more sponsorships out there to give?
Good question. So the fare will not change for BRT. The fare for BRT and local bus will be the same. And the reason for that is we don't want people avoiding the BRT system to take a local bus because it's 50 cents cheaper or something. BRT is also pretty tightly woven into the rest of the network. Some cities have tried to do sponsorships, for example, station names or something like that. It doesn't generate a ton of revenue. We are not pursuing anything like that. So, BRT will just kind of fit into the system. The system is branded as Metro Rapid, so it's kind of the backbone, the workhorse of the system, but it's definitely just part of the system.
And I did have an operating cost. For you, the question, and it'll be for Tim. Again, these are very important that they run on time and you have it. The operating costs associated to the roadway, say plowing, is that going to increase, or is the city and both cities going to be changing so that we don't have ice pack on there? It's going to affect them, or?
So is that question for Tim?
Actually, it'll be for your city operating folks as well as for
Okay.
Tim. Are we going to change how we plow these roadways and maintain them?
So the city's responsible for Fish Hatchery plowing it, and every storm is different. There's so many variables that play into a storm. We're doing it different every storm event, whether it's the wind, the precipitation, the timing of it. It varies. So we'll adjust accordingly on, if ice pack is forming more because the buses are traveling more frequently, then it's something we'd adjust to. We would have no issue doing that.
And I presume,
Yeah,
Brent,
and in Madison, in Madison, we haven't really made huge changes. The streets are plowed with city forces as they always have been. We aren't introducing any barriers, curbs, or anything like that that would create a new pathway that needs to be plowed. So, the plows basically plow all 8 lanes of East Washington today, and they'll plow all 8 lanes of East Washington tomorrow. One thing we are doing, because it is a little bit more intense of a snow removal operation on the platforms, is we're introducing electric snow melt system for the platforms and the sidewalks leading to the platforms. So that will keep the platform surfaces dry and free of ice. And it'll also take care of some of the smaller events. That'll help with the platforms so that people aren't slipping off the platforms.
I guess,
May I ask why, when we have city facilities down here, that we want to stop this up there at Trevington Pike Drive and not have the same service come all the way down here? Is it that much savings of money that we don't want to do that at this time when we're planning all this out? I mean, the elderly, the youth, library, the senior center for people to, I guess I'm just curious as to why we don't want to run it all the way here at this time.
Yeah, I think there are three pretty significant reasons. One is the land uses south of McKee really aren't supportive of this level of service. There are some things, such as the things that are where you currently are, the library and city hall and so forth, but that doesn't really generate the ridership to have a 60-foot bus running every 15 minutes. And so that's why we think that the all-day service is important, but the frequency of the BRT system is really a little bit difficult to justify. When we do a BRT project like this, we are required to run it every 15 minutes or better. So if we were to extend the BRT system all the way to Lacey or East Sherrill, we would be basically required to run it at that frequency, basically in perpetuity. We feel like that's going to be pretty difficult to do when the land uses really don't justify that level of ridership. By extending the 65 and 75 to be all-day routes instead, because they can run less frequently, they can run much longer and connect many more neighborhoods for the same operating cost. And then the final reason that I mentioned was the Federal Transit Administration looks at our project in terms of cost effectiveness and land use and other metrics. And so by extending it to another 1.5 miles with which would all be in mixed traffic, because it would be mixed traffic on Fish Hatchery Road, would not add considerably to the ridership. It would negatively impact the cost effectiveness and the competitiveness of us receiving that small starts grant. That's incredibly important to fund the project. So those are kind of the reasons that we decided to not run the entire line all the way down there, but instead kind of take the first steps towards that and provide the all-day service. I think it's easy to think, well, we're doing it, why not just do it now? But you have to think that every day, every hour, 4 buses are going to go down there and come back. And when we were spending the operating budget to do that, we really need to kind of have a good reason to do that. We need to have justification that people are using that service, and we think that justification will be there eventually. But right now it just doesn't really match where we have that level of service in other parts of the network.
Mike, tell me about the north or east, whatever you want to call it, terminus of the 65 route. In your slide, it seemed to stop in Southdale area. Would that continue up and
Yeah, so do you want me to bring it up again, or do you want me to just talk from it?
Either way, I'm just wondering if that's going to extend up and people could transfer onto Route B north of the Beltline or something.
Yeah. So what we'd like, so Route 65 is the route that runs along East Sherrill. Actually, let me just bring it up if that's okay with you. So because there is a little more to it. So Route 65 is a peak-only route that basically runs from East Sherrill and Fish Hatch, east along East Sherrill, and then up along MM and up Rimrock. And then it continues up along John Nolan into the University of Wisconsin campus. It was established with the transit network redesign last year, essentially replacing Route 49. So one thing that we'd like to do is extend Route 65 up along Mickelson, making the connection to Routes B and Route 75. So I kind of glossed over that, but that's a change, an extension to Route 65 to pull it up a little bit farther and make those connections at Triverton Pike. But the line, if you notice, ends basically at the Fitchburg city limits around Badger and Rimrock before Rimrock goes over the Beltline. And I've ended it there because that is that would connect to the Fitchburg city limits, but it also would intersect with Route G and would cover the area of Route 65 that does not have all-day ridership or all-day service in some other way. So from here, Route 65 would not really end at Rimrock and Badger. It would go somewhere. There are a couple of different options we could do. One is it could extend north into Madison, as Route 65 currently does during peak periods. I'm not sure that Madison would really support that because it doesn't really add a coverage, to areas that don't already have it or need it. Another thing you could do with it is off peak, have it turn to the left and meet up with Route B over here at Park and Badger. This would actually be Park and Hughes. So this station would be Hughes Station at Park and Hughes. So it could do that off peak. During peak periods, we don't expect any changes. It would continue to go up straight into campus as it currently does. But this midday, evening, and weekend variant of it could do a number of different things. And we haven't really decided or looked at what it could do. We also have a couple other routes there that, might benefit from changes. So for example, we have Route O, which does kind of an awkward big one-way loop. So depending on what happens with Route O, this could somehow get kind of connected into some service change with Route O. It's a little bit hard to look at some of those concepts when they just, have so many moving pieces. But as it pertains to the city of Fitchburg, we've just drawn this out that it would run this route and then it would go somewhere from there. So the city of Fitchburg funds the route essentially as it runs through their city. So that's kind of the way we've laid it out. And then we've said if this moves forward, we'll figure out what to do with it once it gets into Madison and Madison's funding it. But it wouldn't go nowhere. It wouldn't just end there. It would connect back into something.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that people in Southdale, if they wanted to get to Madison, wouldn't have to go south down to, Sherrill Drive, et cetera, and head to Trevorton Pike and get Rapid Route B to get north.
Right, yeah, no, we try to make that would be infuriating to be so close and yet so far, so we tried to make that connection.
Any other questions? All right, well, if you do, he gave us the BRT at cityofmadison.com email address. All right. I guess if there's no further discussion, I'll call the vote. All in favor of resolution R8624, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for your time, Mike.
When is this going to council?
The 14th of May.
14th?
It goes to TTC on the 13th,
13th.
and then
Okay.
council the next day.
Thank you.
Moving on, I will entertain a motion to approve ordinance 2024-0-11, amending the composition of the Transportation and Transit Commission by amending Fitchburg Ordinance Section 6-379A, 6-556, and repealing Section 6-688G.
I so move we approve ordinance number 2024-0-11.
Second.
All right. Either Tim or Ross want to walk us through this?
Yeah, I can take this one. The Transportation and Transit Commission currently has one of its members appointed by the Board of Public Works. The mayor is proposing replacing the Board of Public Works representative on the Transportation and Transit Commission with a Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission representative. This ordinance reflects the necessary changes to the Board of Public Works, Transportation and Transit Commission, and the Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission ordinances to reflect the proposed update by the mayor.
So currently, TTC has 7 slots, correct? 7 people? And there is a vacancy right now, a complete vacancy, is that correct? Or what is the composition, I guess, of the current TTC? Let me ask it that way.
You want to take it? Or
Sure. So right now, we have a member of the Board of Public Works, we have a member of Plan Commission, and we have a council representative. And then we have 4 citizen appointments. Right now, we have 1 vacancy in those citizen positions, and then we have functionally 1 vacancy in the Board of Public Works representative position.
So why do we currently have a vacancy? Is there no one that has expressed interest in it, or is it just a timing thing and just hasn't been appointed yet?
I'll let Bill take this one, or
Well,
Tim.
as far as I'm aware, Kim, you and Dunn and
No, I mean the
Dave
one that's
all-
vacant, not the representative
Oh.
from Board of Public Works, the one that is
Okay.
completely vacant right now. Why is it vacant?
Yeah, Bill Horns just resigned last month, was his last meeting.
And to my understanding, that vacancy will be filled with all of the other turnover on committees that's happens at this time of year.
Has that happened? Have you been reappointed from council perspective, or is that at the next council meeting?
Yeah, we have not moved on that yet, as far as I'm aware.
Okay.
I don't know if we've had any applicants or if anybody's been contacted from,
No, I just mean
previous-
your council position. So are you still going to do TTC
Oh,
and
I'm
Board
sorry.
of Public
Yes.
Works?
Yes.
That you did that at the last meeting with the new council members?
Yes.
Okay. So what is the makeup of the Bike and Ped Committee right now? Does anybody know that?
Mark Hamilton is chair, Andy Potts is on there, my wife is on there, Dawn Krim is on there, but I think she is in the process of moving elsewhere, so she's probably not going to remain long. It's on the website.
Yeah, and I think I've looked at it. I guess my concern with this is that there already is a Bike and Ped Committee. And I was on TTC for many years, quite a while ago, well, before I did this, and I've been doing this for quite a while, is that TTC at that point in time was becoming heavily geared towards bike and pedestrian issues, and there wasn't a Bike and Pedestrian Committee at that point in time. And then they appointed the Bike and Pedestrian Committee to sort of take those events, and in my, I guess, opinion, I thought, or my recollection was that TTC, has some of that influence, but was still going to represent the city of Fitchburg in terms of the motor vehicle portion of it. I think when I was there and I've watched a couple of them, I feel like it is still rather heavily focused on the bike and pedestrian issues and not so much on the motor vehicle issues. And I do have some concern that if we have Bike and Ped appointing another person to the commission, it's going to go even more so that way.
I will say that currently Steve Arnold is chair of TTC, and so, that's where his interests lie. I think nationwide, globally, there is, and opinion time, there needs to be a shift away from cars toward more pedestrian and active transportation, that sort of thing. But I don't know if there's, and I've only been on the commission for a year, but so previous to that, I don't know if you paid any attention and thought there was a deficit. I'm just saying that right now, the makeup of TTC is friendly to active travel, but that's not always going to be the case. We do have, always a representative from the Board of Public Works as our staff contact. So any, roadway projects are obviously going to come through TTC regardless, but I'm thoughts from Mr. Dave or Mr. Don?
Agreeing because the standpoint, we approve certain financial stuff. Like I think earlier in the year we had to approve a bus, air or facility on there. So if we technically lose off that committee, again, we'll be approving stuff that they might have lots of them they want to add. So I'm just wondering but maybe with you on there, and if you're a permanent fixture on there, it'll always have an alder at least on there from Public Works.
That's not necessarily the case.
Oh,
And alders are up for reelection every 2 years.
but if the makeup requires an alder from this
Right,
group
okay.
or a member,
Doesn't require an alder from this group. That's strictly a mayor's appointee of which committees the alder goes on. But I also understand the conflict of the fact that, even though Dave was appointed to it the last time, he's not able to attend it. And Thursday nights don't work for me either. So that's why I was curious when you said TTC was moving to Monday, to a Monday meeting. I thought, well, maybe I could do it then because Mondays would be better for me than Thursdays. Thursdays don't work for me. And I realize that not having, we haven't been fulfilling that role. I think Mike Herbst.
Dave Herbst?
Dave, no. Who, Mike, what was Granetsky? Well, he was the appointee from Board of Public Works to TTC prior to Dave, but then he didn't get reappointed. So, the fact that we already have 2 alders already on here, and Thursdays don't work for me and don't work for Dave. It's hard. We only have 5 members. They already have 7 to get that appointed. And I do understand that, that in order to function properly, you should have, a full member or a full number of the people going in. My concern is just, why does it have to be from Bike and Ped Committee? Could it be another citizen at large that we could, get in if it doesn't have to be Bike and Ped? Because I think Bike and Ped, there's already several members on it, and they address all of their own issues with, their focus, which is supposed to be the active transportation, moving the bike and ped. To me, the TTC, yes, they do have to take some of that into account, and I can't imagine the makeup of TTC ever not having people, pro that. But I do also think, the motor vehicle needs to be considered. Yes, there is some shift away from that, but it's never going to completely go away. And a lot of people have moved to Fitchburg from the city of Madison because they are more interested in the rural aspects of the transportation and the motor vehicles from the people that I hear. So I guess I don't think that it's a good idea for it to be Bike and Ped, and I'm going to vote against this, but that's my opinion, so.
Other thoughts?
I have a tendency to go along with her on the fact why we put that bicycles in. It doesn't make sense.
Can you tell me why that came up? Why did it go to, if you're looking for another person, why did it go from Bike and Ped, and why didn't it just go to another appointee for a citizen at large kind of thing? Does anybody know that? Who suggested that it be the vacancy or that became the Bike and Ped person?
I was one of the early proponents of that with the expansion of the scope for the bicycle committee, becoming the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee, or Commission, I should say. It's, it's transportation, it's recreation, et cetera. So, and, there's a lot of overlap between TTC and the Bike Ped Committee with the transportation aspect of.
So who represents the transit interests at Transportation and Transit currently?
I guess the membership at large represents.
Okay. I just feel like it would be better served to be a member at large, but like I said, that's my opinion. So we can vote and see what the rest of the group thinks.
Yeah, I guess it maybe also was suggested that we pull from another commission or committee because, we were pulling from the Board of Public Works. So rather than switching to an additional citizen, pull from another related
I can see that, but then again, I think you get to the point, which was part of my issue when I was on Planning Commission, they met 2 times a month. So, and that got to be too much with running my business and trying to do everything. So I went to TTC, which only met once a month. But you get so much mingling between the committees that even trying to schedule another meeting when there's a conflict like the one you have here, when you're on so many other things, well, we can't meet Tuesday because that's council, we can't meet, this day. And the same people, we have the same group of people that are serving on so many things, and the city of Fitchburg's got 30,000 people in it. So that's why I was sort of curious as to the vacancy that you had right now, if it was that nobody had expressed interest, or I didn't realize Bill Horns had just resigned at the previous meeting, and you hadn't gotten around to it yet. I just think that when you get the same people, and that's even part of this. We're all working on Board of Public Works right now, and then to have a representative to be going to TTC. I mean, you people on council, I give you a lot of credit because you go to an awful lot of meetings and you have an awful lot of commitments. But if you're trying to get general interest from the public and the citizenship of Fitchburg to do something, in their community, in an area they have an interest in, that kind of thing, then all of a sudden you're appointing them to like 3 different commissions. That gets to be too much for people in a work-life balance when they have families and, other interests and things that they do on other nights of the week. Maybe they play softball on Thursday nights or something. It just seems like you're getting the same group of people that's getting appointed to a lot of things and there's a lot of meetings and pretty much end up, 3 days out of your week, whereas you're willing to serve and you're willing to help out your community and you want to do that, but all of a sudden going from, once a month, twice a month to, many different commissions, I think that limits the number of people that are really interested in doing some of those to a smaller group, and then it's those same people who you're hearing the same viewpoints from over and over. I watched the TTC meeting on this bus rapid transit thing, and because I thought we weren't having a presentation here. I guess I thought that's what was said originally, that we should pay attention to the TTC one because it wasn't going to be shown here. So, I saw it twice, but it's the same people asking the same questions because a lot of the composition of the people are the same.
Am I hearing an amendment being proposed? I mean, you're free to if you like.
Well, where does this go? Where does this go after us? I mean,
the referral sheet, I think it says TTC and Bike Ped Commission.
Oh yeah, okay, I see that here. So, I guess I would be. I mean, I don't know. I would be in favor of saying I would like to, remove the Board of Public Works representative to TTC and not have it come from the Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission, but have it be a citizen at large. And whether or not we want to do that in an amendment to us, and then, I mean, so then would that amendment go to TTC and to Bike and Ped?
Yes.
Okay,
So that, yeah, so at next Monday's TTC meeting, we would see that the Board of Public Works approved with amendments, and then the Bicycle Committee as well on June 4th.
okay. I will make that amendment if anybody, go ahead.
Mike Karinsky, it used to be, I can't pronounce his name real well.
Mike Granetsky?
Yeah, he was on that board too, transportation, and he always wanted to stay on. So maybe somehow or other, if you're going to word that way, they could bring him back into that. I have no idea how that'll go, but.
Yeah, he could apply, and the mayor
Yeah,
could
right.
choose, yeah.
Okay.
That's true.
So I guess I'll make that amendment that the position is opened up to a citizen at large or whatever from the city of Fitchburg. I don't know if I'll get a second or not, but.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any further discussion on the amendment? All right, all in favor of the proposed amendment to, I guess, you guys are keeping track of specific wording, perhaps? They don't look happy
Yes.
about it.
I like that affirmative handshake.
Yeah, okay. So I guess, yeah, in the red line version, rather than Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission, it'll say something like citizen at large in each instance.
And I guess that doesn't preclude a bicycle and pedestrian person from doing it. They could be appointed as a citizen at large too.
True. Okay. All in favor of the amendment as proposed, say aye.
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 All opposed? I guess I can go either way, so I'll abstain.
Okay.
Motion passes. Amendment passes. So now, I guess is there any further discussion on the main motion, on the main ordinance?
So what are we voting on now? With the amendment?
With the amendment, yeah.
Okay.
We're voting on it with the amendment, right?
Right, so we just voted for
To
the
amend it.
amendment.
Now we're voting on the
the
resolution, or
amended
the ordinance with the amendment.
ordinance change, yeah. All in favor of the amended ordinance, say aye.
Aye.
All right. I'll abstain again. Motion passes. On to announcements. Next Board of Public Works meeting will be 2 weeks from today, Monday, May 20th. Same time, same place.
I may have a conflict there. We're having some issues with my husband's mom, and we might be in Michigan and unavailable at that point in time. As of right now, I will be, but that's subject to change. But there's a good chance I won't be there.
Okay.
To take that in consideration with your quorum. You will be?
I'll be here.
Okay.
And I guess Dave Herbst most likely will be here. But one never knows. Okay. I guess on to the next item here. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.